Hello, and welcome to this special episode, which we're calling Hekate and the Holidays. So, today we are going to be discussing everything from how we celebrate the winter solstice and bring Hekate into all of this, to navigating the holidays with families, how not to get overwhelmed. We might even talk about some Hecate's Horde style folktale monsters. And of course, we'll bring the Christmas witches like La Bafana, and even perhaps that great spirit of winter, the Kaliak, will come and join us. So I'm joined by a super special guest, one of my favorite fellow Canadian Hekateans, Jessika, who is a curriculum guide in Covina. She helps to educate others through different things, teaching on panels and helping with curriculum development. She's an amazing practitioner of natural magic and art. So she often co-leads our crafting circles, and her special focus is the key of Medela, which means healing. And she is just creating amazing content on different expressions of the sacred feminine, with an emphasis on a different color every month, which I love this. I love anything to do with like properties of colors. She is also, in her adopted country of Australia, a well-established pranic healer. So, Jess, before we do our opening ritual, I thought maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what the heck is a pranic healer?
That's a great question. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here with you today. And what is a pranic healer? So I've been doing that for over 20 years. It's a type of energy healing that helps to remove stress and diseased energy from the energy body and replenish with fresh energy. And in that process, it speeds up the body's natural ability to heal itself. Um, we do a lot of meditation and a lot of connecting to the energies from the earth and the air, particularly.
That sounds so fascinating. Maybe you'll come back sometime and we can talk about that more for like a whole episode. Energetic healing, and like you said, using the natural elements. That's a big part of my personal practice, not only for myself, but for when I send healing to others, either remotely or if I'm doing healing work on someone in person. Um, Connecting with the elements to direct and channel healing energies is something that I've been doing for a long time. So it sounds very interesting. As always, we begin with our threefold ritual, our triformous ritual, which is an epithet of Hekate that means she of three formed. So we begin, and if you have a candle, I invite you to light your candle now. And if you don't, you are welcome to use your hands. So we always go counterclockwise, left-handed, to release, banish, and cleanse the space. So we're just banishing the holiday blues, banishing holiday stress, banishing any kind of perfectionism about the holidays, banishing feeling like we should do things that we don't want to do. And so now let's switch hands and circle us together in protection and connection. So we are making this circle for all of us who perhaps have felt othered by mainstream holiday celebrations, can't really find our place in popular Christmas. And we're all coming together to see that we are indeed not alone, that there are many who perhaps have a hard time with the holidays. And we thought that putting Hecate in the holidays might make us feel a little bit better. So I have our invocation ready to read. This is the winter solstice prayer to Hekate. Hail Hekate Chthoniya, queen of the underworld, who heard Persephone when no one else did. Hail Hekate Propolos, queen of the middle world, who guided Persephone back to the earth, creating the seasons. Hail Hekate Sotera, queen of the upper world, return to us as the wheel of the year turns. We honor you on the darkest day of the year. We honor you as the one who returns the sun. We honor you on the winter solstice. As you guided Persephone, deliver us from the darkness. Hail Hecate. I wrote that so long ago. Sometimes when I like run around, like imagine me if this was a physical library instead of my computer, I feel like, oh, look what I found in the back shelf. So that's definitely one from a long time ago. So Hecate and the holidays. So I am wearing what I would typically wear. So if you're watching this instead of listening, um, I'm wearing like a black hat, like a black toque with my rhinestone hoops, kind of a lacy shirt, and then a scarf. So right from the get-go, if I were to go to like a more mainstream holiday party and I showed up like this, like I don't own one of those Christmas sweaters. I don't own anything Christmassy that operates on batteries. I remember I went to a Christmas party a few years ago and they tried to put those like necklaces, those battery operated necklaces and things on me. And I was just like, that's not me, not who I am. I'm here for your holiday party. I don't like parties and I have a hard time with whatever this is. Um, like the whole like Christmas thing with the sweaters and the booze and the this, and then there's the whole like strangely hyper Christian things that go on, and then there's like all of this crazy consumerism that has zilch to do with what I find is a really beautiful story, which is the story um to I think it's in different books of the New Testament, but the version of the Christmas story that I like the best is from the book of Luke in the New Testament. Um, and it's a really beautiful story about Mary, who was a Kore, like Persephone. She was a maiden who was called by God to do some crazy things, like our Persephone. And then followed, like the will of God and did all these things and brought the Son of God, like brought the light back into the world through the birth of Jesus. And then, of course, like the shepherds came and then the magicians came, and Jesus grew up to be kind of like this healer, um, feminist, queer magician guy. So I don't have any problems with the story of Jesus, as like in different versions of the Bible. And I certainly really have an interest in Mary. I would say, like, when I was a kid, Jessika, I don't think you know this about me. As good as we know each other, I don't think you know this about me. When I was really little, I went to Catholic kindergarten and became enamored with Mary because I had never. So
Wow.
my family went to the Pentecostal church. There was no Mary in the Pentecostal church. Like, you rolled her out for the Christmas pageant. You know what I mean? Like, she's like, I get to put Jesus in the manger, and that's the end of what I do for the whole Pentecostal church. Um, and then when I discovered the Catholics and their Mary and this statue of Mary, that was like my first exposure to the sacred feminine. So Mary and I go way back, and I'm not like, and I think it's kind of a cool story about the whole nativity and it reminds me, of course, like, I mean, you know this, like the Persephone myth, the Isis, Horus, Osiris business. Like this story was not a new story when it
No.
was first told, and like what the story has come to mean is it's really like it can be really beautiful and wonderful, but there's so many ways this is used like to perpetuate othering, perpetuate like making people feel shameful, perpetuate all the things that there is none of these things in that story. It's just what gets done to the story by people, which is really, really heartbreaking, I think. And I think a lot of us have a lot of, like, I know me personally, I had so much trauma because of being raised in the Pentecostal church. Like, I wanted nothing to do with Christmas. I wanted nothing to do with Jesus or even Mary when I was like, this is like 30 years ago. But since then, you know, I've kind of gotten over all of that. And I do find beauty in the story of the Nativity. It's a beautiful story. But I do kind of see it just like it's a story. And then I guess that just makes me more like kind of on the margins because, you know, people who might literally believe it or, you know, like put a lot of credence in it or kind of almost weaponize it against anybody who doesn't believe the story. You know, like there's all this stuff around Christmas. And I always do end up feeling very othered, whether from my own family who are still Christians to this day or just a lot of like my friends, and even for me, if I'm being completely 100% honest, like even in the pagan community, sometimes like not so much now because of like online is everything, but like back in the day, you know, like these wonderful pagan friends of mine, for me and my love of like, well, I'll wear all black, and you know, like, and I just don't do the kind of more, I don't even know what the word is for it. You know, like I will always be like, I am a Hecatean to my core. You know, I want what the deeper, darkest mystery parts of this, and not necessarily like what is more superficial. That sounds like I'm insulting. I'm not insulting. I'm just saying like I want to have the holidays in Hecate's cave.
Yes. Yeah, you want the dark time of the year in Hecate's cave. Makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes. I come out to do a winter solstice sunrise ritual because that's always my practice. Um, but I love the longest night of the year. But I think like for me, like wanting to run into Hecate's cave for the holidays, it's a lot because it's just so much. Like, and we just want to like retreat into that dark, wet womb where we can be with our herbs and our candles and our cards and feel like we are in our safe space as opposed to what can feel like excessively weird. Um, so I think
Absolutely.
the holidays can be really, really overwhelming, and we can need to retreat. And this is definitely the temple of good enough here at Keeping Her Keys. And Covina, you are good, you are enough, and take really good care of yourself and do what you need to do to navigate the holidays and like learn to say no. I think Hecate is like a goddess of boundaries, both in this sense,
Absolutely.
like there's some ancient, you know, like her statues were put like on the periphery and at crossroads and whatnot to kind of watch over things, so there is like some kind of historical origin to this, but the modern sense of boundaries, I don't know. Okay, let's talk holiday boundaries. You got stories?
Absolutely. Yeah, a few years ago, it was Christmas morning and we were meant to go to my in-laws. Um, and there was a lot of stress around seeing them, a lot of stress around going there. And in my own personal life, I had been really busy with work that year and just a whole lot of personal stuff. And by the time Christmas came, you know, the energy, it kind of builds like that stress energy, the excitement of Christmas, but then also the stress energy builds. You just feel it in the atmosphere. You know, you can't even go out to a mall or anywhere without there being hordes of people. And, so anyways, I had a panic attack on Christmas morning, and it was quite severe. And, I just said to my partner, I can't go. Like, I can't, I'm a mess. I need to stay home today. And of course he was very respectful of that. And, even though we were sad at canceling, we canceled, and that really was the start of me learning to have really good boundaries around the holidays. And I don't think my in-laws really understood why we canceled, even though I tried to explain, which made it more difficult. But that's okay, because I did what I had to do. I just couldn't go that day. And now when we do have Christmas stuff, I'm very particular about exactly what we're going to do, how far we're going to go, how long we're going to stay. I'll put all those into place ahead of time. So we'll have a discussion like, okay, this many hours. And if I need to leave early, I'll give you the signal. There's a
Yep.
signal. So then we can manage it better that way. So that might be something to think about, putting in that plan into place if it's going to be hard for you to go somewhere during Christmas.
I think that I'm a big proponent. Like we have plans like that, and we've done it like when we go around my family, or if we used to go to social gatherings or whatever, like I would set specific intentions as well about what I would
Mm,
talk about, what I wouldn't talk about, what I would respond to, what I wouldn't respond to, and just kind of seeing like those boundaries almost like as an incantation. Like you've got your set of intentions, and this is your magic to get through this family gathering or a holiday work party or whatever it is. Like just to see
yeah,
that, like that is your incantation that will see you through this. So setting those really firm boundaries. Um, and I love how
absolutely.
you said like the time that you're leaving. Like, yes, I can
Yeah,
go to this, and we can go from like 7 to 9 p.m.
yeah, absolutely. It's like putting up your magic circle, those boundaries, like you say, it's so powerful, because when you can manage that time and those expectations you have on yourself, um, then you can kind of control the energy of it. And in doing that, you can actually have the space to have a nice time. Like if you're only going to stay so many hours and you're going to exert so much energy in that time with certain family members, you can kind of relax into it because it's going to end at a good time for you.
Right. I think, this what something that's kind of percolating to the surface that I think people might be interested in hearing about is like if you are going to a family situation or some kind of other social gathering where they might ask you questions about like your spirituality or like your witchiness, um
Mm.
and like having boundaries about that, because I don't know, have you ever, like that's a question that I always feel like people are actually afraid to ask me, um when I'm in a place, like they'll sometimes make sly remarks like, are you going to do a spell for that? um and I'll be like I'm not going to waste my time, sorry. um so I think that's like, how do you navigate that? And I would say like when it comes to the holidays, like it's not the time for doing things that are really risky, that feel unsafe for you,
Yeah.
because it's already so much, right? So if you've got to go and do family things or work things or social things, and it's feeling like a lot, adding to that the expectation that you are somehow obligated to tell anybody about anything about yourself, like you're not. Hecate is a goddess of boundaries, so set that boundary, like I don't need to self-disclose here, which I
Yes.
think is such, that's been such a saving grace for me. Like I don't owe these people anything. Like there is a place where I feel safe and nourished, and that's where I let out more of me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to do that in this space where people might be really critical or really curious, or this bizarre thing that happens to me sometimes in social situations, or people are kind of like they're interested. It's almost like I don't know how to even, I can never think of what to call this. It's like you're the witch in the room, and isn't that cool? Like, you're so cool. So it's almost like the opposite of being criticized. It's like you're being pedestalized as being like this cool creature instead of just being like a person at a place doing a thing. So I do have that episode called Being the Witch in the Room that gets more into all of this business. If you're wondering about how you're going to navigate all of this, like if you've had changes in the past year, maybe this is, you're just discovering Hekate and witchcraft, and you're not sure how this is going to go over. I always say, just keep yourself safe. And when it's already a super stress zone and you're trying to stay in your magic circle, don't add more to it by thinking that you owe other people like anything about yourself. I am
Absolutely. That's
okay.
really good.
It's good. So we are committed. So you and I and the kind of the rest of the Covina team, we have been kind of jokingly, but also super seriously doing this kind of stealth project for the last month or so, which we called Mission Putting Mary Back in Merry Christmas. And you have been doing some amazing research. And in Covina, you've developed a lesson on the Black Madonna. And I know you've been doing a deep dive into fleshing out Mary and making her like giving her life and vitality, kind of like yanking her off the stained glass window and bringing her some, like, vivifying her in a sense. And it's interesting because, of course, Hekate has nothing to do with the Jesus story. Um, but for me, as someone who really seeks to reclaim all aspects of the sacred feminine and kind of like restore it and redeem it in some cases, like the way Hekate was vilified, I love learning about any expressions of the divine feminine. Like, any goddess really always captures my attention. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your project of putting Mary back in Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So I grew up with no religion. And in a lot of ways, that was really lucky because I was given the freedom to kind of explore the world of spirituality and different gods and paths. I did find Mary through one of my pranic healing teachers. She used to be a mother superior before
Oh,
she got into energy healing and pranic healing. And so she has a lot of Christian teachings that, that she can get into the mysteries of. And it was through her that I first found Mother Mary and found kind of like a connection in the energy. I didn't know why I was drawn to Mother Mary. But there was something, I could just feel something there. Like, when I'd go into like a Catholic church and you'd see a statue and there would be something coming to me from the energy of her. And so I decided to explore this recently in Covina by studying the Black Madonnas, which are a fascinating phenomenon. They're basically Mother Mary and baby Jesus, and they have black or brown skin. And first off, this should not be surprising. This should not be
yes.
a big, serious phenomenon because Mary would have had dark skin, right?
Right? It's like the whitewashing of Christmas and everything else.
Absolutely.
The
It's shocking.
whitewashing of
Some
Mary.
of the statues, they've actually like whitewashed the statues to try to make them not as dark. It's a whole other thing. So there's this really beautiful lineage, of the great mother goddess and her energy. And when you study the Black Madonnas, you see that the shrines and the churches that were built to honor them are often on places that used to be temples to other goddesses like Persephone. um, and Venus, and there's just such a history of that continuation of the energy of the Great Mother. And that energy had to go somewhere. Like the people, you have to remember too, 2000 years ago we were much more rural. We lived in the countryside much more than in cities. And so when you change suddenly the religions, it doesn't change overnight. And so that energy continues. And, the Black Madonnas, oh, they're amazing. They each have their own, and I like to call them the Black Madonnas with an S, because there's heaps of them and they each have their own incredible story and history. And, with protecting people, there's tales of the Black Madonnas preventing different armies from coming into places, protecting children from being, taken. There's a story of one Black Madonna who she protected kids that were taken by the Nazis. I mean, they're really beautiful stories and of healing, so much. The Black Madonna in Czestochowa, when you go there, apparently the walls are filled of like crutches and, all these things that people have given up because they were healed when they went there. So there's just all these mysteries, and there's so many threads, so many exciting threads when it comes to the Black Madonnas. There's these, tales that link up with the Knights Templar, with the Camino de Santiago, and all the pilgrimage trails. So they're just fascinating, and I love how they've carried the energy of the Dark Mother, and in some ways they're just so much more authentic than the White Mary.
Right, like the White Mary that's like flattened literally into those stained glass windows where, she's pale, she's passive. And so this is like a Mary that is really connected to, like you said, the Great Mother, and having like those darker aspects, both in terms of skin tone, which is more historically accurate, but also in terms of like the modern use of the word dark goddess or dark mother, which is often used to describe like Hekate and other goddesses, um, that kind of have the power of creation and destruction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Many of these Black Madonnas, they sit in the crypts, and they have like tales of being called, the Our Lady of the Underworld, which we don't get anymore, right? Because White Mary is so one-dimensional in some ways. Yeah, there's just so much more to them.
And I think you told me a really interesting story, like about one of these Black Madonnas, these ladies of the underworld, that they kept her in a, like you said, they kept her in a crypt.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah,
like they hid her away from everybody. Is that what they did?
there's been all kinds of stuff. There's been ones that were kept in crypts where people could go and visit. There's been ones that were hidden away. There's ones that were hidden in caves, and to prevent people from destroying them. There's Black Madonnas who've been burned at the stake. There's Black Madonnas who were held for ransom. I mean, like they have stories like people would, like it's incredible, the history of the Black Madonnas.
I think that's interesting how you said like they were even like burned at the stake. And it's all of this, like, I mean, I know I don't want to insult anyone who finds like the more churchy, Catholic churchy, popular version of Mary to be really meaningful, because that's entirely possible. Um, and at the same time, it's like exploring how, I guess, institutionally, in a lot of instances, the Catholic Church really pushed the Black Madonna or the darker aspects of Mary, like literally, like put her in the basement, put her in the cave, or burnt her at the stake.
Yeah.
In their efforts to have this really kind of passive version of Mary that wasn't at all connected to like the wildness, the earthiness of the Great Mother. Like you said, like many of these Black Madonna shrines are on sites where there were temples to older goddesses. So there's like a lineage there. And I feel like you said, the Great Mother with her powers of creation and destruction, like she always kind of finds a way and people will always be drawn to her, even like when the institution of the church or the state is trying to really, make the sacred feminine passive and one dimensional. Like, so I just find this whole history really interesting. And also, like, how being burned at the stake, it was associated with magic and witchcraft, which is so fascinating, right? So there's all, I mean, there's so much that we're not able to get into about the Black Madonna today, but if you're interested, you can look that up. And we knew we wanted to talk for a little bit about some witchy aspects of the holidays. So Yule, or the winter solstice, for me, I always do a sunrise ritual. We eat a big meal. My sons are grown now, so there's not so much with the presents and the fun kind of stuff around Christmas. You're in Australia,
Yeah.
so it's the opposite. Tell us what you do in Australia for the winter solstice.
Okay, so for
So right
me, when
now, you're going to have the summer solstice this week. So
I am,
why don't you clear that up for us? What's going to happen this week? Okay.
yeah. So first of all, I'm in Australia, so we're the exact opposite. We have the summer solstice coming up. It's light out by like well before 6 a.m. The days are long. It's fantastic. There's so much light. I will be getting up. I like to get up really early on the solstice days, whether it's winter or summer, and just kind of watch the sun come up. And I light a candle. I'll go outside probably because it's nice and warm here now, finally. And I'll just sit and I like to really take in the moment, like just feel it in my body, take in the energy of this really incredible moment in the change of the seasons, that liminal space, where everything just, that's that switch of it changing. And I like to say that when it's summer solstice, it's the return of the darkness. So I can celebrate the return of the darkness and lean into the days slowly getting shorter. In winter solstice, I do very much the same thing. I get up before sunrise and I light a candle. And if it's okay, I can go outside if it's not too cold. Or, if it's not available to me, I can stay inside with my candle and just be aware as the sun comes up, of the energy and that shift in the change from the the dark time to the light coming back, and I like to sort of celebrate like this. I like to feel that energy of that spark of light, but within myself. I'll do a little meditation and I'll just feel that spark of light returning, not only to the world, but to myself as well.
So that's interesting, like how you navigate the fact that like most of us are talking about the winter solstice and it's the darkest night. You completely are having the opposite experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so interesting. And like my mind is just kind of like, you can't have Christmas like in the summer. Though we've had Christmas as a family down south before, but it's just so fascinating to me. I don't know. I always get so fascinated by the wheel of the year and by the seasons and how things are so different in different parts of the planet. Like, to me, that is like Anima Mundi, the soul of the world kind of aspect of Hekate, like how beautiful our world is. Like, we were talking a lot about how the holidays, wherever you are, can be stressful because of social demands or family demands or consumerism. Like, there's so much that can go on. So if you can find, whether you're down under and it's the summer solstice, or if you're up here in the northern hemisphere and it's the winter solstice, I think just being able to find a little piece of quiet, you know what I mean, that you can just connect to the seasons, and just feel that, like, the awe of the seasonal shifts, and disconnect from all that other business. So we did want to mention a little bit about some of our beloved Christmas witches, like La Befana, the Italian Christmas witch who brings presents and is quite lovely. But then there's like the scary ones who eat children as well, like Grilla, I think. We've got the Covina Librarian here with us behind the scenes today. I think Grilla, I've got Grilla right. We'll call our Covina Librarian, aka the Kaliak herself, is here with us. Grilla, um,
Hello.
hi. So it's Grilla. Did I say that right?
It is actually, um, you know what? I got lost looking at the Yule Cat, the scary monster
Oh,
Yule
you're looking
Cat.
at the Yule Cat. Okay. Well, we think it's Grilla. Okay, Frau Holly
hmm
from Germany. We know about Frau Holly. So there's lots of Christmas witches that you can study, and then there's all the amazing monsters like Krampus. Jessica, are you familiar with the Krampus?
Absolutely. I love the look of the Krampus and the dances. You know how they do the
Mhm.
dances in some of the European countries? It's so neat. I just love it.
So, like, and that puts me to mind of like Hecate's Horde, which is like this idea that all the restless spirits, some good, some quite nefarious, are watched over by Hecate. So, like the Krampus, and what are you talking about? Librarian cats that eat people?
Yes, the Yule Cat, and that it does. It's a lot of them just tend to be Icelandic, and they usually you'll have Yule lads with the ogress Grilla. You'll have the Yule Cat, which is a strange spirit that shows up and eats children.
Which, it's like the what is it, the Impusai, that they were historically associated, they were mythological creatures, spirits who were like restless women who ate children that were very
hmm
much associated with Hecate. So it's like in that same kind of vein.
hmm
And then like there's also, like you said about the Black Madonnas. So for Hecate, one of her roles was Chorotrophus, protection of children. So I find it interesting, like that in traditional folklore around the holidays, that was probably descended from like much older, like pre-Christian stories. That there's this idea of like, we're going to protect children and give children gifts and bless them or eat them. Um, right, which is, it's kind of funny, but it also gets to the whole idea of, I guess, that, like the dark mother, she's creatrix, she's the destruction. So yes, she can be the protector of children, Corotrophus, and at the same time she's in charge of these really scary spirits who eat children. um the Impusai were their names in terms of Hecate, but there's just, the similar stories cross cultures and times. This whole idea of the great mother figure who is all of these things and more. So I think it's probably time to wrap things up with a poem I wrote many years ago when my children were younger. So, whether you have children in your house or pets or you're alone, this is a poem I wrote. And I hope this poem brings you some comfort and reminds you that although we did mention going out to look at the sun on the solstice, that if you're in the northern hemisphere, finding that comfort in the longest night of the year, that rich darkness and the excitement of having, maybe you have a tree up, and just finding the magic in this season. So I hope this poem reminds you of a little bit of the absolute magic, whether you celebrate Yule, the winter solstice, Christmas, whatever you celebrate, it's all good. You do what is beautiful and nourishing to you. Um, and even if you decide that you don't want any of it, that's perfectly acceptable too. So here's my poem as offering. To the moon on the longest night of the year, my lovelies are safely in dreamland. Their faces, the sweetest I know, are tucked chin deep in blankets. Visions of feasts and gifts floating above, watched over by kindred spirits. Perhaps even a jolly old elf flies on the wind. There is magic in this night, the longest one of the year. Joyfully I creep with arms laden to the candlelit tree, placing these tokens with great care, as if boxes could contain my heart. There are no words left to say. I only have a voice for the moon, who bids me come. My boots crunch on the fresh snow. My breath is sacred smoke. I speak to the moon, offering my voice to the mystery of this night. Hail, moon. She brushes aside the clouds to better see me. Dear moon, so bright, keep us safe on this darkest night. Let no sadness find harbor here. Bring happiness to those I hold dear. Now, moon, I must take my leave. My bed awaits, and my eyes are weary. Watch over us and remain forever near me. So, blessings to you on the winter solstice. Happy holidays, however you celebrate it. And blessings to you on the summer solstice, Jessika.
Thank you. I will have a fabulous time. Blessings to you on the winter solstice.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks for watching, everyone, or listening. And if you are listening or watching to this right after we release it, just know that I am going to be taking a little bit of time off over the holidays, and I'll be back with new episodes the first week of January. Hail Hekate, everyone.